let's talk John Tatian's 2016 Epic World Championship winning deck list. Have it right here in my hands. And boy, is it a masterpiece. Now, is it the end-all be-all deck of the tournament? Well, in terms of numbers, it clearly was. It won. But there are other viable decks in the format. However, I figure, what better way to start off covering the top decks in Epic Card Game than to take a look at the deck that took down the big tournament. So, starting off, he's got 3 Chamberlain Kark, 3 Inner Peace, 3 Angel of Light, 3 Noble Unicorn, 3 Angel of Mercy, 3 Palace Guard, 2 Royal Escort, 3 Ceasefire, 3 Inheritance of the Meek, 2 Divine Judgement, 3 Brand Rebel Fighter, 3 Second Wind, 3 Priestess of Angeline, 3 Blind Faith, 1 Bodyguard, 1 Watchful Gargoyle. That wraps up the good cards. No pun intended. And there are plenty of good cards left to go. 3 Ancient Chant, 3 Lesson Learned, 2 Erase, 3 Fumble, and to finish off our Sage cards, 1 Amnesia. Finally, 3 Drain Essence, 1 Plague, to pay for 1 Heinous Feast, 1 Consume. Okay, so let's talk the deck. What does it do? Well, it's a control deck. It's the most controlling deck in the format in terms of gaining card advantage and stalling out the game to build toward its inevitability that it gains through attrition. Now, Chamberlain Kark, alternate win condition, only 1 in the game, allows the deck to run a more streamlined amount of win conditions, because this guy can just win it out, considering the amount of life gain that's in this deck, and it can sometimes win out of nowhere against an unexpected opponent. An unexpected opponent, that is. 3 Inner Peace. Now, this card, even before Epic Uprising came out, was a staple if you were trying to build a control deck because of the amount of burn that was in the format. So, still a good card for stalling out the game, and it can go the long game by recycling over and over. Not recycling, but what's the game? By recalling over and over and over again. Angel of Light, 3. Underestimated card. On the surface, doesn't look very good, but considering how much good the deck plays, how life gain helps, ambush, flying, or airborne, it's definitely a great addition to the deck. Noble Unicorn. You want to talk about card advantage engine. The amount of good cards that trigger this in this deck, a lot. Angel Mercy. Get back a number of those champions that listed, plus a couple more that we haven't covered yet. Especially the namesake Kark. So, it's always in your back pocket. You can go into turn, Angel of Mercy, take your turn, Chamberlain Kark, win the game. The Palace Guards. Removal. One of the only few cards that you have to play on your turn that cost a gold. 2 Royal Escort. Why 2 Royal Escort? Up to this point, the deck has had nothing but 3 ofs. So, why only 2 Royal Escort? Well, it's a good card, but you don't always want it. It gains you life over and over again. Good for the deck. Ambush, and also protects something such as Angel Mercy. Angel Mercy plus Royal Escort is really good, because unless they have a board wipe, it can be really annoying to deal with, especially against Burn, because this guy has 9 defense, out of range of Flame Strike. 3 Ceasefire. Probably one of the more underestimated cards of the tournament. This card can create a gambit for the deck, because you have a number of ambush champions. Now, they have an army to swing with. If they swing all in, you'll just block with your ambush champion and basically negate their entire turn, doing exactly what your deck wants to do by stalling out, gaining life, protecting your health so that you can win the game with Kark. But if they go ahead and start attacking with one champion at a time, you can severely punish them with Ceasefire. So, this deck has a 2-pronged attack against attacking. And here's the Meek, Divine Judgement. 5 board wipes in good. Got 1 more in evil, but why only 2 Divine Judgement and 3 Inherence in Meek? Well, I think the question speaks for itself in his choice. Clearly, he found it more important to be able to play the card on his opponent's turn than to be able to take out tokens. And that's why John correctly played 3. Now, in a different metagame, where tokens are a big problem, maybe you want 3 Divine Judgement instead, or other board wipes. 3 Brand Revel Fighter. This guy is good. Him, along with Second Wind, allow you to gain 5 health for free, which, if you need to get from 30 to 60, this is one way to do it. But, while Second Wind recycles and draws a card, Brand can gain more health by blocking. So, he's actually a lot of health for a free card. Priestess of Angeline, also just good free. Blind Faith, got pesky unbanishable and unbreakable champions, about to die to an unblockable attack, a number of other different effects. Basically, you don't want to discard a card from Thought Plucker. Well, you can play this and basically prevent it. 1 Bodyguard, 1 Watchful Gargoyle. He clearly just threw these in. Why not 2 of each? Or 2 of one or the other? I think it's clear that he only wants 1 Bodyguard, because it has diminishing returns, considering the second one's not near as good as the first one. But this one still recycles, so I think he needed to keep his recycle numbers up, and the Airborne is definitely relevant. Okay, so that's his good choice. Ancient Chant. 3. This is a card drawing engine. It's what his deck needs. It's why he's playing a little bit of Sage. That and this card right here. Another good reason to play Sage. Okay. This card is very good. The ability to instantly play any of the many different amazing event cards in his deck right away without having to wait, such as with Memory Spirit, enables him to, out of nowhere, do something unexpected. But it also combos quite well together with Ancient Chant in terms of card drawing, because 2 of these equals 6 cards for 2 gold. That's 3 cards for a gold, which is something that's unheard of, because most cards only draw you 2 cards for a gold in Epic. How does this work? Well, play your Ancient Chant, draw 2 cards. It's in your discard pile now. Play your Lesson Learned. to flashback your Ancient Chant. Ancient Chant goes from your discard pile to the supplemental zone. You have a pending trigger now for your Ancient Chant, but we're still resolving Lesson Learned / Ancient Chant inside of Lesson Learned, so we're not going to deal with that yet. Resolve Ancient Chant. Draw 2 cards. 2 cards in hand. 4 cards total, counting the previous Ancient Chant. Ancient Chant goes from the supplemental zone to your discard pile, because that's what you do when you play an event. Now, you finish Lesson Learned out, and banish both of them. Ancient Chant triggers again, because it left the graveyard yet again. You finish resolving that, you draw 1 card for 1 trigger, 2 cards for the second trigger. So that's 4 cards total, off of just Lesson Learned targeting Ancient Chant in your discard pile, for a total of 6 cards for 2 cards and a gold investment. Now that's card advantage. To erase. Most people would say this card's a staple, but John Tatian chose to play 2. Why? Well, the fact of the matter is, he's not really a tempo deck, so he'd rather play cards like Ancient Chant. This helps stall, essentially gain life, and draw some cards, but it's not near as important as drawing cards to him. So he plays 2 of those and 3 Ancient Chant. Now that enables him to play 3 Fumble and an Amnesia. So you might ask, why Amnesia and not another card? Well, clearly he wants some kind of discard hate. He's got Heinous Feast as well in Evil. That gives him 2 cards for discard hate, which is honestly a good amount. Because once you've discarded, or once you've banished their entire discard pile, you don't want to draw a second one, because then they have no discard pile. I mean, if they're a heavy discard deck, then maybe you might want to be able to answer it multiple times. But currently, there's not really a deck that abuses it that much. And you are able to beat the fair decks that are just trying to grind out. Unless, of course, it's discard, as we know, which is good against this deck. But this gives you enough. And he wanted to perhaps not really play any of the other Sage cards. And he wanted to play the Fumbles. Now, he could have cut the Erase, the 2 Erase and the Amnesia, and played more Evil. Why didn't he do that? I don't know. I mean, Erase is a good card. Draws 2 and stalls. So, I mean, he probably I imagine he planned his deck out for the World Championship. But it gives him a good amount. And he doesn't have too many. I mean, he could play more double Heinous Feast, cut the Consume, and then play another Sage card, cut the Amnesia, play 2 Heinous Feast, but he ended up not going for that. But he does have 3 Drain Essence. Very good in this archetype, considering that it gains you 9 life and takes out most of the different champions in the format. 1 Plague, Whitelist over Apocalypse. Seems like maybe he's trying to hedge against tokens, because this is going to be better against a swarm of human tokens, because you can still board wipe on their turn and get your draw 2 in, while not unconditionally, because one of them is a recycle. You still get a draw 2. Or you can still unconditionally break all the champions on your turn. So that wraps up the deck. Now the question is what makes this deck good? I'll tell you what makes this deck good. It's efficient. Okay? Because John Tatian knows how to win an epic. And I tell you how to win an epic. You play more cards than your opponent. And this deck maximizes playing more cards than your opponent. How? It does this with a lot of card advantage. It has a number of cards that I mentioned that also draw 2 cards. It has Ancient Chant. It has Lesson Learned to go with Ancient Chant. It has plenty to draw. Now, you're able to draw a bunch of cards. But you can draw all the cards in the world, but if you can't play them, it doesn't matter. Well, he maximizes playing all the cards he can, because other than the 3 namesake Chamberlain Kark and the 3 Palace Guard, There's not a single card in his deck that costs a gold that he can't play on his opponent's turn. So he's never lacking in the ability to utilize the gold offered on your opponent's turn, which is half the amount of gold you get in the game, so it's very important to use that if you want to gain tempo. But another way he gains tempo is he maximizes the amount of free cards in his deck. He plays 20, which is the most you can play. And he does that by paying attention to the number of cards in each faction that he's playing. Because we all know, in Constructed, you have the limit of every free card of a faction, you have to play 2 cards that cost a gold. And John Tatian does that wonderfully. And that is why John Tatian won. Now, that's not to say that a certain amount of skill wasn't involved and that the man hasn't practiced playing Epic card game a good amount. But putting the right tools in his hands is what got him there. And this is a well-built deck. I will tell you that. It's a well-built deck. Could you tweak it for different metagames? Yes. But the core engine is solid. He has his own proactive game plan. He still plays a good number of champions, so he can still close out the game without Chamberlain Kark. But he has an excellent proactive plan in Chamberlain Kark to sometimes win the game out of nowhere against an unprepared opponent. So he's proactive. He's able to be reactive. He's flexible. He's going to have a full hand and have different options because he plays a variety of cards that supplement his strategy. But he's always able to take advantage of that gold on his opponent's turn and drawing all those extra cards, being able to play his free cards. A lot of them which recycle, so he can just keep going and keep going and keep going. It's hard for John Tatian to run out of cards. Now, it's possible against a heavy discard deck to be able to do that, but he sets himself up for success by maximizing his card advantage. So, join me next time when we talk about another deck from the Epic World Championships. And check out the Epic World Championship qualifiers that are going to be on the Epic Digital game that has an alpha releasing next week if you jump in on the Kickstarter right now. So I would definitely do that because I can tell you what, I'm going to be getting on the app and playtesting a lot to be able to win one of those qualifiers to qualify for the $100,000 World Championship. Till next time.